Good news, rent to rent just got easier. That's right, so many of you are struggling, desperately trying to sell the idea of rent to rent, and all you've been hearing is no after no after no. But check this out, with the renters reform around the corner, we're seeing more and more landlords begging us to take their properties on. But here's the thing, you gotta know the framework, you gotta know the script, but if you watch this video and follow exactly what I'm gonna tell you, trust me when I say, deals are gonna come easy. There's a lot of people online trying to make rent to rent seem really complicated. And look, don't get me wrong, all right? It's not easy, but it's simple when you know how. And I had a revelation this week because I realized it's getting easier. And on this video, I'm going to share exactly why that is the case. So check this out. I've got a table here, and what I want to do is I want to play a game, and it's called rent to rent versus tenant. So imagine this is us, the rent-to-renter, okay? And imagine this is a traditional tenant. So every single time you're trying to get a rent-to-rent deal, the landlord or the agent are weighing up, should we go with a rent-to-renter? Or should we go with a traditional tenant? Or should we give you a go? And people always talk about all these reasons why a family would be better. But when you actually break it down, I'm going to show you that there's 4 key criteria that all landlords and agents want. And if you position it correctly, like I'm going to show you, you're going to see the rent to rent is a really easy sell. So let's start off with the first thing that all landlords want. Of course, they all want rent, okay? And they want it on time and they want it in full, all right? They want it on time and in full. Now, here's the thing. In rent to rent, we're entering a long-term agreement, right? Where the whole business model relies on us guaranteeing their rent and then charging more to tenants. But check this out, right? In traditional tenants, we're in a bit of a recession right now. And the fact of the matter is, if people lose their jobs, if people get made redundant, it is extremely hard for tenants to always pay their rent in full and on time. And what's really crazy, and this is something that we're going to touch on more later, is the renters reform and tighter laws around tenant rights is making it extremely hard for landlords to really do anything when the tenants don't pay rent. Us, on the other hand, let's use a nice green pen. We can guarantee your rent because we are ultimately charging more to our tenants. So our personal economy has nothing to do with it. So if you can position us as, good rent payers, it's going to be a really easy sell, particularly if a landlord has had a bad experience, which I'm speaking to more and more landlords at the moment that are getting really tired of traditional tenants. The second thing is related. This is rights. Now, the fact of the matter is, at the moment, tenants have all the rights. If you want to evict a tenant, it is very challenging. And not only that, but with the new renters reform, tenants could just give notice any time, which is a real challenge. So in rent to rent, it's pretty simple. If we don't pay, you take the property away. But with tenants, they have really stringent rights. And this can be an absolute nightmare for landlords. Just ask somebody that's got on the wrong side of that. With us, however, okay, it's quite simple. We pay you the rent every month. Otherwise, you do not take, you could take your property. And because in rent to rent, we're not tenants, we actually have no rights other than the contracts and other than the commercial arrangement. So for a landlord or an agent, working with a rent-to-renter is another big tip. Third thing is the length of term. All right. Now, with rent-to-renters, it's really simple. We're going to guarantee the rent for 3 to 5 years. Happy days. Let's just give us a big tick. But with traditional tenants, families, well, what do all families have in common? Ultimately, they want to own. They want to buy their home, right? So most tenants stay 6 months, 12 months, and then want to move on. So when a landlord or an agent chooses a tenant, there's no guarantee that they're going to be staying beyond 6 to 12 months. And worse still, every time a tenant moves out, The landlord has to do works. They have to refresh the property. The agent has to remarket the property, do another inventory, conduct all these viewings, do all the paperwork. So it is a lot more hassle for both agents and tenants to constantly be renewing this term versus us. We basically guarantee the landlord's rent for 5 years. And if we're working with agents, we're guaranteeing their commission for that period of time too. You can see where I'm going with this, right? Isn't this seeming like a bit of an unbalanced sort of competition right now? And the final thing is the care for the property. Well, here's the thing. If we don't care for the property, are we going to be able to rent it to a premium to our tenants, to our guests? Of course not. So we are going to look after the property, do a light cosmetic refurb, furnish it, clean it on an often interval, because we have to be able to rent this property out at a premium. Families, on the other hand, and I've seen this firsthand, you got kids, you got pets, and essentially people don't treat other people's property as good as they do their own. So when you actually do a tally of this table and you're able to communicate this correctly to a landlord, you're going to start to find that rent to rent is a really, really easy sell. But I'm going to go a step further, because this rights thing, in terms of this renters reform and the term, this is the game changer. So up until now, a family could rent a property for 12 months and they are tied into the length of the tenancy. But just around the corner, that same tenant, there'll be no fixed tenancy, which means they can give notice at any time and just move out. So you've now got a landlord that's got uncertainty. And landlords, investors, they all want certainty. So if you can give that landlord certainty, pay the rent on time and in full, if you can share that actually they're going to have more rights working with us, if you can actually commit to a longer term agreement and then follow through, and if you can show them how well you're going to take care of the property, this stuff is going to get a lot easier. So if you're looking to source rent-to-rent deals, you just want to look at it on that simple level, because a lot of people overcomplicate this stuff, right? You got a property, okay? Normally we would purchase that property, but we're not going to purchase that property. We're just going to pay the rent, and let's just say the rent to this property is £2,000, okay? All we need to do, this is you, okay? This is landlord. All you've got to do is just get one landlord on board. We're not talking about you needing 50 landlords on board. You just need to get one landlord that understands what I've just showed you, and you rent this out on either a service accommodation basis, a HMO basis, or an assisted living, supported living, let's just call it SL, and generate cash flow. And I'll never, ever forget, I remember when I started and it was really, really hard, and I was viewing all these properties and getting all these no's, and there was this weird anticlimax when somebody first gave me their first set of keys, where I was uneasy and I kind of looked around to see if anybody was watching me and if this was actually all above board. And it was really weird. Like, I expected it to be this massive thing, but they gave me the keys and then the property was mine for 5 years. I cash flowed it like crazy, and then reinvested that money into doing over 70 more deals, and then reinvesting in properties I do own. And now, as a sort of multi-7-figure property owner, all I want is those 4 things. All right? I just want my rent. I just want to make sure that I've got good rights in a relationship. I want a tenant that's going to stay as long as possible. And of course, I want somebody that's going to take care of my property, because I spend a lot on them. They're gorgeous. And then tenants consistently are naughty. That's simple. So with the renters reform just around the corner, okay, what you want to do is capitalize. There's no better time to get started. Landlords are nervous. They're scared. They're exiting. But you can intervene and make this work for you, all right? And just remember, all right, rent to rent is not a brand new concept. This has been going on for many years in commercial and residential property, and it is not going anywhere.